So today's first question is from Jeff, and he's wanting to use the SwingHighsLows to set his initial stop loss getting into a trade. However, sometimes that the SwingHighsLows doesn't quite exist yet. So let's find an example here. So let's say, for example, he wants to take a short, on this bar here, and we can see that the indicator hasn't caught up yet. And so the indicator, or it should say, the swings, the most recent swing high hasn't been plotted yet. All right, it's taking an extra bar, or maybe he's trying to go low, while this bar is building, in the middle of this bar, while this bar is building yet, but the indicator, right, waits for the bar to close before it actually plots. So that's the first question there that we're going to address today. What to do about that. Now, the easy answer, I would say, is to take a look at the SwingHighsLows settings. Thankfully, Jeff sent in a screenshot of his settings. And the first thing I noticed is the number of swings is set to 1. And so that's going to be the biggest issue right there. So if we set the number of swings to 2, let's hit apply. Now, we'll notice, actually I guess I got to close this. You'll notice that there is a continuous, swing high now. So if you're taking a short, there's always a swing high available. So that'll solve some of the problems, but not all of them. So, because still, if we take a look, if we try to take a short on this bar, right, the swing high is still detected as being down here. Right, so this swing high hasn't been detected yet by the indicator. Right, we can see it gets detected one bar later. So there's still an issue. And let's take a look and see what happens if we up the number of swings to 3. And that still hasn't solved the issue. And it probably won't. So the swing sensitivity is set down to 1. So that helps the swing highs and lows be detected as soon as possible. And 1 is the lowest number you can go. So the higher the number, the default setting is 3, and that would require the swings to take a little longer here. So actually, here in our area of question here, we can actually see that there's no swing high detected at all now with a swing sensitivity of 3. So setting it down to 1, is as helpful as the indicator settings are going to get. So, all right. So we still have this, missing indicator plot here that we still need to solve for. So that's really kind of the key of today's question, right? So, all right. So with that, let me get BlackBird up and running. Actually, before I do that, let me switch my data feeds here quickly. Okay, now we can get BlackBird up and running. Let's see. So let's get BlackBird open. And actually, before we get started, I'm going to see if I can get the chart set up here. All right, I'll just move the market higher, and we should lose the swing high. So let's see, this is a 5-minute bar. So in about 2.5 minutes, this bar should close. All right, that should get us set up. All right, so let's start making an order set here. And so the entry order doesn't really matter. The question's not about the profit target, so let's just jump straight down to the stop loss. So the first thing we're going to have to do, and this is probably going to be common when using indicators to set your stop loss, right? Because indicators aren't always in the correct location. This happens with the ANA supertrend or any kind of other ATR trailing stop loss, right? Quite often, that ATR trailing stop loss or supertrend stop loss, usually it's that indicator's not plotting in the correct direction that someone might be wanting to take a trade. So if you're doing that, if you're using an indicator, quite often you'll have to use a fixed stop loss to start yourself off with, right? So in case the indicator is not plotting in the correct location. So, so go in there, and set yourself a comfortable stop loss. So I will, I'll just increase this to 25 ticks. This is a 5-minute chart. I'm guessing 25 ticks is probably okay, but who knows? This is NQ. NQ's been kind of crazy lately. So, but find a suitable stop loss, fixed stop loss to start you off with, whatever that needs to be for the time frame you're trading in. So, and then once you have that, then we can go into the trailing rules here, and we'll set up a trailing rule that will move your stop loss to the indicator. So in our case, it's going to be the swing highs lows indicator. So let's see here. All right, so something like that. And depending on what you'd like, there's a couple of ways. Well, actually, let me start off by saying we need to set up some kind of requirement that must happen before the stop loss is moved to the swing indicator. So, for example, let's take this bar right here where the cursor is, and we can see that there is no swing low right here, right? The swing low is missing, and let's see, I'm not sure where it is, but in any case, the swing low is missing. So if we try to take a long trade on this bar, right, there's no swing low indicator there yet. And let's see here. Actually, let me find a better example here. So let me close that out. Yeah, all right, here would be a better example. So, let's say tried to take a long, decided to go long on this bar, but we can see that the swing low is way up here. All right, so if you're going long here, you don't want our stop loss to move up to the swing low too soon, right? We definitely want price to be above the swing low before that trailing roll kicks into place. So there's a couple of options here that we could do. The simple one is you could wait for so many ticks in profit. And actually, no, that's not a good idea. Sorry. Scrap that one. This does work in a lot of cases where you just wait for so many ticks in profit and then the trailing roll can kick in. But in this particular case, we actually need to compare price to the indicator. In this case, let's use a trigger event. And if we look at our list of triggering events, we have a price versus indicator. So what are we gonna compare here? So we'll compare the closing price of the bar. Or you could, if you wanted to, you could look at the high of the bar. In some cases, maybe looking at the high of the bar is suitable. Or, well, actually, maybe, if we're taking a long trade, maybe looking at the low of the bar, comparing the low of the bar to the indicator might be more suitable. So, say, for example, like a few bars later, maybe you might decide, depending on your type of trading system, that the low of this bar is a little too close to our swing low. So you may not want the stop loss to move up to the swing low quite yet, right, if we're in a long trade here. But maybe the low of this bar is now far enough away from the swing indicator. And so now it's okay to move the stop loss up to the swing low based on the low of the bar. There's lots of ways that you can approach this, but I'll say probably the typical way is people are going to look at the close of the bar, right? The closing price of that bar. So I'll just use the closing price here for now. And then the next step is to set up the indicator that you want to move the stop loss to. So in our case, it's going to be the swings, highs, lows. Now, one thing that the person who sent in the question was using was the swing points. So the swing point prices is this swings, highs, lows indicator. It's just built in with a custom kind of interface here. But you can see that it has number of swings and a swing strength, which are the two settings in the swings, highs, low indicator here. So let's set up these settings the same here. So on the chart, I set the number of swings to 2, and the swing strength being used is 1. And one thing I would suggest is for the widest, or let's see, actually, we need to make a few more changes here. So actually we're going to, so for a stop loss, you actually want to use the bottoms. You want to use the bottom plots, which is the swing lows, right? And the swing lows is the bottom plots. And I would suggest using the widest swings here. So the widest swings is the dashed lines. And you can see that there's a dot. Sometimes there's a dot on top. That would be the dots is the tightest swings. So, and let's see over here. Now we can see the dots. You see the two blue dots. So that's representing the tops or the swing highs, right? So we can see the dashed blue line is marking the swing highs, and we can also see that there's a dot on top of these sometimes, right? And if you look at these dots down here, right, which is, again, would be the tightest, would be the tops, and the tightest swings would be the dots here. But if you really want the swing highs, the highest high of the swing highs, then you want to use the widest plot. So the dots, depending, now the dots depends on the number of swings you have and your swing strength, but the dots or the tightest swings would be the intermediate swing highs, whereas the widest plot represents the highest swing high in our number of swings look back. So basically this number of swings is kind of like a look back period, looking back to find out, to see, how many swing highs there are and which one is the highest out of those. So typically for a stop loss, you're typically going to want to use the widest swings here. And then, so now that we have our indicator set up, then you will want to set up some kind of an offset. So what this offset would be, so in the case of a long trade, right, we're using the bottom widest swing, which is the magenta hash line, the hash plot. So back in our case over here, you may want to make a decision that, you want the closing price of the bar, or maybe the low of the bar, depending on which price you're using for a long trade. But we're using the close. But so you probably want to have some kind of an offset so that to make sure that the close of the bar closes some minimum distance up above, right, that swing low, some kind of minimum distance there. So how about we'll just say, I don't know, 10 ticks, just as an arbitrary number here, but definitely kind of figure out, depending on the volatility of your instrument, figure out what kind of an offset it would be safe to use, in your trading situation. And so that would be, so what this does is it takes the swing low, the indicator swing low, it's going to add a positive 10 ticks to it. And so when the closing price, when the close of the bar is, so here for a long trade, if we look at long mode, if the close of the bar, which is A, equals or is above B. And what is B? Well, B is our swing low with a 10 tick offset. So you're going to take this, the plot of the indicator, and add 10 ticks to it. So as long as the close is above that 10 tick offset. So let's see, what would that 10 ticks would be? Let me make this easy on myself. This is NQ, so how about if I make it 12? So that's 3 points. So 3 points, it looks like our swing low is roughly at 65.20. It's probably a tick above that, but let's just say 65.20. So that'd be 65.23, which is roughly up here. So that would be 3 points on this 5-minute chart. Right, so yeah, so that's what this would all equate to, is roughly, yeah, 65.23 and probably 23.25. So yeah, it looks like that's at least a tick, maybe a half a tick above. But in any case, so using this triggering event, basically what we're doing is we're making sure that the closing price of the bar is far enough on the correct side of the indicator before the stop loss moves to that indicator plot. Right? So this is kind of the key of getting, the trailing stop loss to working correctly here. And then the next step is just to set up our action. So we want to move our stop loss to that swing point. So let's set the settings here, 2 and 1, and let's see. So we went with the bottoms, swing lows, and so this is where the stop loss is going to get moved to, right? So you probably don't want to have an offset of 12 ticks here. If anything, most people like their stop loss to be a tick below the indicator, 1 tick or 2 ticks below the indicator. So I'll just put a -1 in here. So that would be 1 tick below that swing low. All right, so on a 5-minute chart, the NQ has been pretty volatile. 1 tick below probably doesn't do much good. You might want to do an extra couple of ticks below, but who knows, that's up to you guys. So set your stop loss, tick offset from the indicator plot if you want that. And then the repeat. Now, if you want your stop loss to just sit there at the first swing low that happens, you would leave your repeat at none, and the stop loss would just move up to that swing low, and it would just stay there. Now, if you wanted your stop loss to keep trailing up as price moved up, then you would set your repeat to repeat indefinitely. All right. And since we're using an indicator, since we're setting the stop loss to an indicator, right? Indicators typically update themselves on a bar by bar basis. So you can just leave this on a 1 bar repeat setting here. So, yeah, so basically that should do it. So let's take this and see if we have an example here. And let's see. Yes, we do have an example. So let's go short. And there we go. So we can see our swing high is plotting down here. Right? So we're going to have to wait for that swing high to plot up here. And you know, I'm using a 5-minute bar, so let me use, let's close this out and let me use a different bar type here. How about if we go to something like let's try an 8 range bar. Okay, there we go. An 8 range bar will work. So let's move price down. I'll take a, oops, yeah, sorry, not a long. I want to take a short. There. Now, well, actually, let me cancel this here. So what if I take a long trade here? You'll notice that, right, my stop is at that 25 tick stop. And it's going to stay there, and it's not going to move down to the swing low. Even though the swing low is plotting way down here, right, stop losses don't move backwards. So that just, you know, make a mental note if you're wondering how come my stop loss isn't sitting down at the swing low. You know, that's because our initial placement is set at a 25 tick offset. And so this 25 tick offset is much closer to price than where our swing low is down here. So again, right, our swing low being down here, you know, that swing low is much too far away, and that 25 tick offset was a lot closer, right? So so there's kind of a trade-off there, you know, when you're using an indicator to set your stop loss. So, all right, so now let's kind of get back to taking a look here. So here, all right, so our swing high is right here now. So if I take a short trade, now I'll move price down. So price is going to have to go down below the swing high here. However, if price moves down far enough, the indicator will detect this as the new swing high, and our stop loss will move down to it. Let's kind of scale this up a little bit. And bingo, there we go. So as soon as the swing high started plotting, our stop loss just triggered down to it. So, right. Also, remember, price, the bar's closing price had to be 10 ticks below the swing high plot as well. Okay, so with that, trailing, or I'll open up the trailing roll here. There you go. So that was kind of the key to getting this all to working here. I did find another question in the emails here from Peter. So he would like to set his stop loss so many pips or ticks away from what he's calling a channel, but he's referring to his channel as a high EMA or a low EMA. So, all right, give me a moment to set my chart up here according to what I think his example would be. All right, so this is the EMA set to the high price. And this EMA, I'll set it to the low price. Okay, and let's see if this works out. Maybe this works better on a minute chart. Let's go back to minute charts. Yeah, there we go. That seems a little better for a minute chart. And let's see, maybe if I increase the period, that might help as well. No, it doesn't seem to. Trying to make these channels as wide as possible. Well, all right. We'll just leave it at a 20 period here. And let's see here. Oh, I need to move price back down into our trading area range here. All right. So let me save this out here before I continue on. All right, so there's today's first example. And let me clear this out. And let's kind of start from the beginning here. So the question is how to set your stop loss to, I guess, I'm guessing if you're taking a long trade, I'm going to set the stop loss to the EMA of the low price minus a few ticks. And then if you're taking a short trade, you're going to use the EMA of the high price and set the stop loss a couple of ticks above it if you're taking a short trade, right? So let's set that up. Okay, let's go in here. All right, so let's start in order. I'll just make it a market entry. And the stop loss, well, we're definitely going to do a custom stop loss in this case. Let's see. Well, I guess we could... we could start off using the parabolic SAR, right, as an indicator. So that really kind of all that does is using the parabolic SAR is it just sets the select mode to indicator value for us, right? So not a lot of convenience there, but at least it puts us in the right spot. So let's go into the configure, and we are using the EMA. So let's add the EMA here. And we want to, we want to nest the, we're long, so for setting this up for a long trade, we want to nest the low price into the EMA. So let's see here. How can we do that? We can do that by using Chameleon. So there we go. Chameleon comes in handy once in a while still. So let's nest Chameleon in there. And with Chameleon, we don't have to change any of the settings. In fact, we don't want to change any of the settings. So for Chameleon, we're going to nest, for a long trade, we're going to nest the low price, right? So there's the low price, and the high price, we're going to use the high price for a short trade, right? So the high price is what's going to give us the green line, and the low price is going to give us the red line here. Yeah, and then, on the EMA, make sure I need to change the period here to match what I have on my chart. So there you go, 20 period on the EMA. And Chameleon, I just had to select the correct plots here. All right, so let's see, for a long trade, let's say we want our stop loss a couple of ticks below it. I'll just over exaggerate here. So I'll set it to 5 ticks below. And for a short trade, it's going to be 5 ticks above there. All right, and then if we want it to trail, let's go into custom here, and then add a trailing roll. All right, I'll just call it trail the EMA channel, as Peter had put it. So this is just a simple trailing here. And so, in this particular case, I guess we're going to assume that, the trade's always going to be taken, in the correct location to the EMA. So I'm not going to set up a delay or a trigger. I'm just going to go straight to the action here. And so we want to move that. We want to move the stop loss to an indicator, and it's going to be that EMA indicator. There we go. And let's set the period to 20. And now let's go and nest Chameleon into that. There we go. There's Chameleon. And again, if we're taking a long trade, we want to use the EMA of the low price. And for a short trade, we're going to use the high price into the EMA. Like so. And then let's add our tick offsets. There, sorry. Okay. And repeat, set that to indefinitely. So that way our stop loss will trail that EMA. Okay, with that, there we go. That should do it. We're using a 5-minute chart here, so it's kind of hard to test a couple of bars, but let's just do a go long. And there we go. We can see our stop loss is a couple of ticks below the EMA there. And give me a moment. Let me turn off the text and markers here. So there we go. So that worked for a long trade. So let's close that out. And let's go short. And there we go. There's our EMA right there. And our stop loss is sitting a couple of ticks above it for a short trade. And let's see if I can switch this over to something like a 5-range chart. Yeah, all right. And I'll move the market up here, and we'll go long. And let's move the market up and have a trail. And there we go. Another bar of trailing. All right. So good enough. All right. Well, with that, gentlemen, let's see. There's still no follow-up questions. So I guess we'll wrap this up for today. Hope to see you guys next week. Keep those questions coming in, if you would, please. And have a good weekend. All right. See you guys next week. Bye-bye.